Well, I'm happy to be back on the blog this week and introduce you to another new to me author. Maybe you know Erin or maybe you don't, but I'm going to turn it over to her in just a second and let her tell you a little bit about herself. But first, I'm going to attempt her name. Uh, we practiced a little bit before we started recording, but it's Erin Bamberry Velikat.
Yes,
Did I get it?
nailed it.
Okay. And she writes, though, as Evie Sparrow.
Yeah.
So Evie Sparrow is who you will see on books and out on social media. But here today for this chat, she's Erin. So
Yes.
glad to have you here. And I'm just going to let you take a minute to introduce yourself to everybody and tell everybody what you want them to know about you.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Dina. We were talking about how we meet online and we haven't actually met each other, but you feel like you know each other in the online writing community. So I am very grateful for that and that Dina had me as her guest today. I chose my pen name because that long name I have doesn't work well. And I had published short stories under that name. So it's been documented as my author name. So that's why it's Evie Sparrow. I started with writing short stories about my travels. I went to about 26 countries, and a lot of my short stories were from travels. Instead of just writing a travel book about all my experiences, I broke them up. And then I moved from short story writing into writing historical fiction with my new publisher, Celebrate Lit. And historical fiction came about because I wrote a short story about my grandfather had told me, and everyone said, that's your lane. Mm-hmm. So I suddenly was put into historical fiction, and that's how I got into that.
Yeah, so that's a big difference from short stories to historical fiction, because how many words are historical fictions typically? Aren't they a little longer normally than some of the contemporaries?
They can be. They can be up to like 350 pages, which is, gosh, about 125, 150,000 words is what I was told. But I try to keep it under 100 right now. But yeah, from short stories, I liked short stories because you could just write them out, 1,500 words or less typically, and then you're done. Okay, you move on, whereas books are taking a few years.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Well, I think for me, I have a hard time keeping things short. I'm very wordy and long-winded. So it would be very hard for me to write a short story. And I write contemporary, but I'm thinking, if I could just write historical, then I could get all those words, that I wanted. But I can't imagine the research that goes with historical. It's so much.
Yeah, that's true. That is the daunting part of writing historical. But you also learn some really, really interesting things. You can go down rabbit trails and go, I didn't know that. What's that about? Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. And I do that with what little, well, not little, it feels like a lot of research, even still with the contemporary books. It's like hours you could just be on the internet and just looking things up that lead you to this, then lead you to this, and yeah.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm supposed to be writing right now.
Yeah, stop.
Right. So you write historical fiction, and you said, was it your critique partners you said told you this is your lane? This is
Yes.
like your best writing?
Yes.
So a little bit about critique partners and what that is like for you, maybe some pros and cons for people. There may be people watching who are aspiring authors, or they're thinking, I would like to write a book one day. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I completely love critique. Of course, you have to listen to what people say, and they might have an opinion that you might not like, but I could never have gotten to the place that I am right now without critique. And taking into account everything that's said. My critique group was just so patient with me. They were all authors for 15 to 30 years, and I hadn't written one thing since college. So they took all this time with me, and they would slash my pages and go, don't cry. And,
Mhm.
you already said this over here. So, they were just so
Mm,
generous with their time for
mm,
me that I felt bad sometimes. But let me tell you that people that want to help others
mhm.
don't feel like you're wasting their time. So if you turn in something to them and it has a lot of errors or um, too much words, like you said, I used to do that a lot. Um, they really want to help.
Mhm.
So since they want to help you, then take their help. And I appreciate that about critiques. Some people might not do them as well. They might be too abrupt for you, but still you have to think these people want my writing to be better.
Mhm.
And if I listen and I apply what they're telling me, I'll make strides, leaps and bounds strides if I can apply it to my work.
Yeah.
So I completely love critique. I'm now in an online critique through American Christian Fiction Writers. There's small groups, but there's also the huge group that you can send where everybody's sending.
Mhm.
Um, I used that for all of my writing so far. Book 2 and 3, I haven't written yet, so they haven't gone through. But the things people say, the feedback, like, I want to know more about this, they give you the reader feedback that you need
Mhm.
with also having experience in writing. So,
Yeah. I started out in that large ACFW online critique group. I think I did that for about a year, um, maybe a little longer. I did it with my first manuscript that I wrote when I didn't have a clue what in the world I was doing. Um, and then the second book, the next year that I wrote, I started putting it through the group. And then I couldn't keep up with trying to write the book and critique other people's stuff and get the book finished. So I finally had to drop out and say, I just got to finish the book. And then once I did that, then I tried to just connect with other people, individual people as critique partners. But yeah, it takes a lot of time too to give a thorough critique to somebody.
yes.
So I can't do that for a ton of people because that's all I would do.
Yeah, I know. It kind of sidetracks you into what your goal is if you don't control that.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, like how we spend our time as writers, there's so much that a writer has to do besides write. So what does a typical day for you look like in your writing world?
I am retired, supposed to be, but I still schedule myself as if it's a job. So not that I'm late to my job because I control my schedule, but I start by 8:30. I typically try to get everything done to where I'm on the computer and I'm either catching up with some emails I had to respond to, whatever tasks. So emails, critique, like you said, if I'm doing that, social media, anything with a deadline. So I have to prioritize. So start at 8:30. I try to take a break about 12, um, half hour, maybe an hour, maybe till 1. And then I spend the afternoon 1 to 4 writing if I can do that. Sometimes I still have too many tasks to accomplish for whatever reason. It's on my calendar. And I have to try to fit writing. Sometimes I only get an hour a day.
Mhm.
Um, and it's frustrating because you want to write more. But the reason why I know the reason why I stop is I have a husband. He's working too. He's works as a graphic artist. So our deal is we work, and then in the evenings we are together. And that's the only way I could have time with him.
Mhm.
And then I work 6 days a week. I tell myself no on Sunday if I can. But
Yeah.
I usually end up on social media for a short amount of time for certain things. But I try to just disassociate myself from writing because of you need that break,
Yeah.
mentally. You
Yeah.
need to stop, reset. A lot of times I'll get ideas and I'll jot them down on my little Remarkable tablet, like, oh, add this to chapter 1, you know. But other than that, I
Mm,
just try to let it be free and rest and
yeah.
just,
I
yeah.
hear you. I need to take your lead. I'm at that place now too where I feel like I'm constantly like trying to keep the wheels spinning. with all the things that are going on that I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm working all day and into the evening and on the weekends. And I'm just like, I've got to cut back somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. And, or either get better, get better at what I'm doing. So it
Better,
doesn't
faster, something.
so long.
Bionic person.
I know, like be more creative so I don't sit and read this one sentence a zillion times and say, how can I rework this? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it really slows you down,
I
right?
totally, I understand. I was there too, and I just could tell I was burning myself out so fast that I had to stop somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow things still get done. It might be a little pressure, but they still get accomplished. And so I encourage everybody out there, if you don't take a break, please make sure you do at least half a day if you can get a half a day in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you one of those people that has a dedicated writing space that you write from, or do you like write wherever you are? You just pull out your laptop and start
I
writing?
have a hard time with that one. I will, I could do social media from wherever I am. So that is like, okay, that's kind of a freebie. It's like ooh, I can accomplish this, on my phone or something. But writing, so actually writing in my stories, books, I'm here in my room. This is where I sit. I
Nice.
have these two windows that look out over my woods that if I need to take a break, I just look out. It's really good mentally.
Mm,
I also have a really cool covered porch. And when it's nice porch sitting weather, I'll haul my laptop out there. But
mhm.
other than that, I write here and on the porch. That's it. And then social media goes with me wherever I go.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Um, so if there's somebody out there like we talked about, maybe is an aspiring author, what would you say to them? Some advice.
My best advice. If you feel called, like you have something to say, and the reason why you want to say it is to minister to other people. So it could be any genre. You can minister through any genre.
Mhm.
Um, then take time to pray about it, seek the Lord on it, ask the people around you, I feel like I need to write. I want to write and tell them, even just the title, just I want to write about kids, in school and how they adjust to the first day. So you have one idea and just pass it off to people. And people that know you really well will give you honest feedback typically. So that's the first step. I feel like hear the call, talk to people then I would start attending, like I did. I went to a workshop, a writer's workshop. Like put yourself in the situations where you can hear, okay, what am I getting myself into? What kind of community will I put myself into, right?
You might not want to know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, yeah. Well, have an idea. um, and it'll resonate with your spirit.
Mhm.
If you're hearing the call and you felt the confirmation from God and the people you love, then the next step would be get around people you might not know so well and listen, and then come up with questions and ask about it. And you might hear someone talking about, like you said, you're a devotional writer. Well, you might hear someone talking about the devotions they write and go, oh my gosh, I want to do that. Or you might hear someone say, well, I write contemporary romance, and you can ask them, well, what sorts of stories, like what's your goal in those? And you might find yourself wanting to do that. So I feel like asking the right questions really matters. Whether
Mhm.
you ask the Lord and then the people around you and then people you don't know, I feel like you'll start to get on the right path.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my blog is all about hope-filled fiction, and I love Christian reads, clean reads, whatever that point people to hope in Christ. So how do you do that in your stories and your writing in kind of an organic way that maybe, doesn't come across preachy or, invites people in and where they want to know more?
Yeah, I know they always tell us to avoid that preachy.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you want to say all the things
I know.
to them, like, but you have to do it in a diplomatic way, I feel like, and in an enticing, like, look what can happen way, right?
Mm.
So with the historical fiction I'm writing, it's obviously according to the setting and what was going on at the time. So you have to fit it to the era or the genre that you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
The way I do it is in my characters. So my characters are not exactly churchgoers. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them believe, but they've wandered. So they're not the Christians we might know right now.
Right.
They're people who are struggling with either faith, hope, love, or all three.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about their story, and the reader might catch on to what's going on before the character does. And the reader wonders, why don't they see that God is right there? If they're a Christian, they might think that if they're a Christian reader, but the character doesn't. And so God keeps seeking them, and they eventually figure that out
Mm-hmm.
through whatever. Just sometimes they make some bad decisions. It takes them a long time to get there. Sometimes it'll be one pivotal choice that changes their life. And I try to mirror what actually happens to us
Mm-hmm.
as either non-believers before we come to the Lord, or afterwards when we're doing all of our chaotic life
Right.
decisions, right? So I
Yeah.
try to put that in there, but all through it, God is woven in, his presence is woven in.
I love that. Yeah. Weave him in there
Yes,
the
just
way we
weave.
can. Yep. Organically in the characters' lives. That's perfect.
Mhm.
So
Thank you.
I want to spend some of our time that we have left talking about the book, the novella that you're highlighting today, which is a kind of a prequel, right, to your debut novel that's launching next summer, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
So
Mhm.
the novella is called Muldoon's Minnesota Darling.
That's right.
And tell us a little bit about that. What is the premise of the story?
So, being a prequel, the reason why I came up with it was an agent at Revell was mentoring me at a writers conference for 3 days. I had her, and when she read this portion of the novel that's coming out in July, she said this would make a good separate story. Yeah, so cut that and use it elsewhere.
Hmm.
And I did. I basically had way too many chapters. Like we were talking about. I like to
Yeah.
just keep writing, you know. So at first I was like, oh, because I really liked Mick and Shauna together. And I thought, oh, I don't, okay, I just need to listen to her. See, critique partner,
Hmm.
anybody who gives you feedback, okay, listen, just take it out. Okay. And it became an entire 10-chapter book when it was only 3 or 4 chapters to begin with. So I got to delve deeper into Mick and Shauna's relationship. And it's actually part of the first book. So you do find the same Mick. He is there, but Shauna was, spoiler alert, sort of, the love of his life. And in real life, he's actually buried next to her.
Hmm.
So that's where he, out of all his wives, which I won't go into, she was the one. So I got to go into their personalities and the dynamic of their relationship and the things they went through together better having a novella than having just a few chapters in the first book.
So is this based on some true events or personal history then?
True. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was my great grandfather.
Okay.
Um, we don't know much about her, but we know of her, and there's documentation about her. So it's about his first wife in America
Hmm.
because he had left Ireland. So that's who Shauna is. And I was, because I only knew so much, I got to just imagine all these things based
Right.
on true events, some true events. And I hope that I did her justice.
Yeah. I always like stories that are based on real life and his personal history or family. I really enjoy those type of stories. I feel like your connection to it really infuses that story with something deeper than just coming up with something off the top of your head. And I know there's great stories out there all kinds of ways. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. There's just
Yeah.
something special about it being a personal history.
Yeah, I like that too. And I think that's why I like writing it,
Mhm.
because I get to say that really happened.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah. Even my little giveaway lead magnet, the cover of it is my mother's house that she first lived in when she was a baby. And
Oh,
so just even that little bit of my history on the cover um, is special to me, you know.
that's great. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about your novella and the characters being based on family, how did you select their names?
I know at first, okay, when I was writing the manuscript, I kept putting their real names in because I was imagining them, and I'm like, okay, I have to go back and rename
Yeah.
these people.
Uh,
And so I left it in all my notes. I was like, Aunt so and so, or so that I could remember who I was talking about. So as the story developed, it's about an Irish family. So I know all the Irish names. So I used as many as I could think of that I've known personally. I don't think I might have looked up one person on the names research for Irish surnames and
mhm.
favorite names, but most of the time I just used all the people I've known. I used a name that I knew. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
for Mick, it on the ship registration, his manifest, his name was spelt McKeel. So it's Michael, but it's McKeel. And I thought, okay, I really like that because that's different. But I decided that would be so hard to keep writing it that way. Through 3 books or 2 books. So I named him Mick. So that's how
okay.
he Mick, which is a total Irish nickname. And then all the rest were, like I said, names. I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, and so there were Irish people all around me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not only my family, but others. Yeah. So I
So,
kind of cheated on the names.
hey, if it's already in there, why not use it, right?
That's right.
So, talking about the characters, share with us about a couple of them. Maybe which one was the easiest for you to write, and maybe which one was the most challenging. Give us a little insight there.
I know. And I go back and forth on that sometimes when I get asked that. Mick was easy because I had a lot of documentation and photos, which I'm picturing, a certain person in my family, letters that he wrote. So I got the feel of his personality through that. That kind of came across the page, and the situations he found himself in. I had to think, how would he feel? What would he think? So it was easier for him. When I started to write, like Shauna, not knowing too much about her, and yet she ends up being the second important character in this book, that was really hard because this was 1860s, and I had to figure out, what would she think? How would she behave? How would she feel? And so I would say Shauna was probably the most challenging to get her correct.
Mm,
Because I
yeah.
wanted to write her feisty, because she had to be feisty. She was raised in a frontier family.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, she's young. So she had to also kind of be under her parents' umbrella. So I was like, oh gosh, how do I write this lady?
Yeah. Yeah,
How do
that's
I?
challenging for sure.
Mhm.
I'm glad that was you and not me.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you did it so well. Um, so
Thanks.
this last question I have for you is, a lot of writers have lots of manuscripts, books that they've written that have never seen the light of day. They're shoved in drawers, and all of these things and before they finally get published. So what about you? Do you have any unpublished or unfinished manuscripts lying around anywhere? Anything that's waiting for publication that you're hoping is going to be published one day? Where are you with that?
I Because I have a 3 book contract, I'm sort of booked out for 5 years. And it's taking all my time. So the book about my grandfather based on, he's book 3. I know him the best, so that'll be fun to write. But it's not unfinished. What I do have is some unfinished short stories, like 3, that probably could be books. So I've kept them, but they took place in like the 70s. Maybe that's still historical fiction, but they're in genres that I don't write. So I was telling myself last week, okay, I like this short story. What if I change genres in the future? What if I'm like 85 and I decide I want so maybe I'll switch to that, so
Yeah.
I'm keeping them.
Uh-huh.
They're really strong in my mind. And I like the premise of the stories. So, like you said, you're supposed to hold on to things that really mean something to you, even if you haven't done anything with.
Yeah.
They're going to take up space in your library, in your
Yeah.
computer,
Yeah. So
but
you're one of those rarities that the first novel you wrote is getting published.
yeah,
Yeah. So a lot of
I
people
didn't expect it.
don't get that. Like they have to write 4, 5, or 6 manuscripts before their first one ever gets published.
I know, I
So
can't wonder about that, because I know that I need a lot of improvement, but I think maybe the Lord knew that I would just get discouraged.
yeah, it is
He's like, I
discouraging.
better give her some, she won't keep going. I don't know. I'm not sure how that all happened. My sister, when I texted her that I got a 3-book contract, she said, how did that happen? Just really simple. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. God
Yeah,
had that in his plan, right?
had to be timing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just timing.
The right book at the right
Nothing
time. And
yeah. I don't think it's anything I did. I don't think that my work's better than someone's. I don't,
yeah.
but for some reason it clicked at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do that. But of course, then that means I'm spinning my wheels trying to catch up, because I have a lot of work to do
Yeah.
that
Yep.
I didn't quite expect coming my way this quickly.
That's right. You do have a
Yeah.
lot of work to do to pump out 2 more books after this first one. So your novel releases, did you say July 2020?
July 2024. And it'll
Okay.
be Muldoon's Misfortune. So they're all going to be Muldoon's in the title.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll be looking for that. And as far as this novella, I know you're offering is it a Kindle version
Yes.
offering as a
Yes.
giveaway? So everybody be sure you comment, scroll all the way down, keep scrolling till you get to the bottom and leave your comment for Erin. You'll see all of the details on the post about how to do that and when to do it, and for a chance
Yes.
to win that copy so that
And
you'll be
Barnes
ready.
and Noble. There's a Nook version too for people that use Nook,
Okay.
like Barnes and Noble. There's actually a link for it there too.
Okay. That
Thank
sounds
you.
great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much. It's been fun meeting you and chatting about your books and your writing, and it's just been a joy. So thank you so much.
I appreciate your interest and your generosity having me. It's fun to meet you face to face.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Those writing community online friends. Here we are
Mhm.
meeting.
That's
So
right.
now we can really say we're friends.
I know. I met her.
All right. Well, you go get busy writing
Okay.
those books. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.